Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Last time we talked about both futures and forwards are related to legal obligations. This time let's talk about the differences between futures and forwards. Before talking about the differences and appreciate the brilliance of a future, we first need to understand the weakness of a forward contract, which is counterparty risk. Let's take an example. Imagine I am Garfield and I love lasagna, which is made of wheat. Let's assume today is 1st of January 2020 and I enter into a forward contract with a supermarket for tons of wheat at a price of 10,000 in 1st of January 2021 because I don't want to risk myself for the price fluctuation of wheat. Now, today is 1st of January 2021 and the price of a ton of wheat rises to 100,000, so I'm actually making a gain of 90,000 per ton of wheat. However, if the supermarket went bankrupt and he couldn't offer us wheat at a price of $10,000 per ton under the forward contract, then our $90,000 profits will just went down the drain. This is what we call counterparty risk, which is the risk that the other party cannot perform the contract. Here, the human intelligence came in and invented a brilliant product called futures. There are two main features of futures that a forward contract does not have, namely the margin system and a clearing system. First, we need to understand the concept of margin. Every future has a requirement of margin, meaning that every party in the future contract has to deposit certain amount of money into its trading account and maintain such deposit at a particular level, which is usually 10% of the price of the future. Let's take an example so everything is very clear. Here, let's look at the diagram. A future worth $10,000 today. So each party in the future contract has to deposit $1,000 into its own trading account to maintain 10% margin ratio. 1 month later, let's assume that the price of a future goes up to $10,500. So each party needs to have $1,050 in its own account in order to maintain the 10% margin ratio. For the purchaser, on the left-hand side, given that he originally has $1,000 in his own account for the initial margin, now he makes a further 500 profits because the price of the futures goes up by 500. So in total, in purchases trading account, there are actually $1,500, which constitutes 14.29% of the margin. So this exceeds 10% margin ratio, so there's no problem for the purchaser. For the seller on the right hand side, there is $500 loss. So $1,000 initial margin minus 500 loss will be $500. So in the seller's own trading account, there is only $500, which constitutes 4.76% of the margin, which is below 10%. So there is a requirement for the seller to deposit further money into his own account in order to increase the margin ratio up until 10%. If the seller cannot deposit further money into his own account, then the seller needs to buy back futures to cover his own short position. In real life, the broker of the supermarket will usually just call the supermarket and ask the supermarket to deposit a certain amount of money to maintain the 10% margin ratio within 48 hours. After 48 hours, if the supermarket cannot do that, the broker will just buy back futures on behalf of the supermarket without asking the supermarket's permission. This margin system is the beauty of futures because once either party is not able to maintain a particular level of margin, he is forced to either buy or sell futures to cover his own position before he goes bankrupt. And this minimizes counterparty risk. By the way, if you don't understand short position, please take a look at the description of the video below. In addition to the margin system, there is also a clearing system for futures. So for clearing system, there is a clearing house acting as an intermediary between the buyer and the seller. For example, if I want to buy a future, the seller will be a clearing house. If I want to sell a future, the buyer will be a clearing house. Since the clearing house has a very high liquidity and is very stable, and our counterparty in the futures contract is actually a clearing house, this again minimizes the counterparty risk. In conclusion, the difference between futures and forwards is that the forward contract has a higher counterparty risk, while the futures has a lower counterparty risk by virtue of its margin system and its clearing system. Thank you for watching. Please support me by giving me a thumbs up, subscribe my channel, and comment below for any particular financial concept that you want me to cover.